Hi, you are listening to This Is Not Your Practice Life. I'm your host, Macie Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friends. I'm a certified life and emotional intelligence coach. And if you really want to step into your highest self, there are a few non-negotiables you're going to have to learn, and I am just the person to help you do it. No matter your past, I'm here to help you create a more fulfilling future. So stick around with me. Not only will I teach you how to navigate your brain's daily mind drama, but I'll help you actually understand your mind, your emotions, why you do the things you do, and why others do the things they do. Most importantly, I'll help you build the self-awareness skills to create whatever results you want. It's never too late to change the trajectory of your life. After all, this is not your practice life. Hi, friends. Welcome back to another episode of This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. My name is Macie, and I'm really excited to have you listening today. We are going to actually talk about coaching, what coaching is, what is the value of having a coach, a little bit of my background of why I hired my coach and everything that transpired in my life because of it. And the reason being is because a couple weeks ago, I had lunch with a friend that I recognized didn't really understand what I do. So she sees the post online. She knows that there's a podcast, but she wasn't actually clear in what coaching is. And let me just tell you that 8 years of actually being a coach and 10 years of doing coaching as a client, it's still mind-boggling to me that someone would be confused what I do or what coaching is. And it's just a reminder that you constantly, as an entrepreneur, have to be talking about what you're doing, because you kind of like, from the entrepreneur side, a lot of times I think we feel like we're being annoying and, we're sending too many emails, we're making too many posts, we're everywhere. And yet there could be people that are watching that are still quite confused at what exactly do you do? What do you help with? What's the value? And I see this all the time. It's this weird kind of separation that I have to have as an entrepreneur, where it's like, just because this is my entire world for the most part, career wise, doesn't mean that it is for everybody else. So what may feel repetitive and redundant to me and second nature, and like the whole world would know what coaching is, what I've come to find in having one-on-one sit downs with friends and whatnot, they have no idea. In case you're one of those people, I'm going to be speaking to the people that maybe life coach, the term, but you're like, what do they really help with? Does that mean your life is a dumpster fire? Does that, can you hire a life coach if life is good? Like, what does it really mean when you're hiring a coach of some sort? And what place do you have to be in life to have one? And how do you know, if you need a therapist or if you need a coach, like, what is it about this coaching phenomenon that's kind of happening in our world today? And why are people talking about it? And what do you really do? So let's actually dive into that. So in order to kind of share with you what I do, I'm going to rewind a little bit and share with you a very shortened, condensed version of my journey. If you're brand new here, this will be new to you. If you've been around for a while, you kind of know my story, but we're just going to rehash it all again, because why not? So I grew up in a family where there were a lot of different moving parts, and many of those moving parts, some people know the dynamic. If you're a close friend of mine, if you're a client, some pieces of the dynamic. But I grew up with kind of an unconventional childhood in some ways. Who doesn't? So I'm not saying that I'm a total unicorn, but there were definitely things that were not okay in the way that my sisters and I grew up, and the things that we witnessed, and just life stuff that other people have issues, and inadvertently they pass down their traumas and issues, and then you're traumatized, or you're a byproduct of other people not healing. And so that's the easiest way to describe kind of what childhood was like. And I was the oldest sibling, kind of. So that's a whole story in and of itself. With my sisters, I am the oldest, and I think that older siblings, especially older daughters, have a different level of weight on them because you're very protective, but you're also kind of maternal. You take your siblings under your wing. You see a lot, you witness a lot, especially if there is kind of a funky dynamic in the home or even outside of the home. And so my dynamic is, unique in that my mom was a teen mom. I was raised by my grandparents, but I was still really close to my sisters. I don't know. And I've only met my biological dad once. I have other siblings by my biological dad. I have only met one of those siblings and it was by accident. So there, that gives you kind of like just a highlight reel of some of the things that are a little bit unconventional in my life. And to say that I did well understanding it as a child or coping with it would, it wouldn't be true. And with my mom being a teen mom, one of her kind of, I guess you could call it like mindset, like her limiting beliefs or even just her awareness was something along the lines of just not feeling like she was being a good mom. And when she would have those thoughts of I'm not being a good mom or I'm not a good mom, she would do her best to make decisions that she hoped would help. And one of the things that she did do for me as a child was get me into counseling at my school at 6 years old. So when I was in first grade, I started seeing a counselor and unloading about the different dynamics in my life and what my life looked like. And that was one of the best things that my mom could have ever done, because instead of internalizing everything on my own from 6 years old, I began understanding the power of talking things out and not just internalizing every single thing. So from 6 years old to 23, I was seeing some sort of counselor, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, whether it was in school, outside of school. Throughout that 17 years of my life, I was talking to somebody about what I was going through. And that's a very healthy practice. So I'm very grateful for the mental health field, for therapists, for counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists, all of the things, right? Very, very grateful for that. At the same time, I'm only speaking of my experience. I never quite felt like they were equipping me with skills or tools that I could use outside of the chaos. Because over those 17 years, the chaos never stopped. The chaos would just be more intense in a lot of weird ways. Again, one day I will write a book and I will let everybody know the true dynamic of things that were going on behind the scenes. But the reality of life was that I learned how to be a really good girl, to walk on eggshells, to not disappoint or upset anybody, and really hold a lot of things in, even though I had an outlet via therapy. So, what this looked like was going to school and doing what I was told to do, being very quiet, getting the best grades that I could, and trying not to rock the boat to create any other chaos than what I was already experiencing that was outside of myself. So, the only thing that I felt I could control was myself. And what I did know is that because things felt chaotic, I didn't want to add any chaos to my life. I didn't want to get in trouble. I didn't want to disappoint anybody. So I was a mega people pleaser and a really goody two shoe, like the teacher's pet. I did everything that I knew I could to do right, to not create any kind of chaos. And that was how I lived my life. And then behind the scenes of what people didn't see were often fires that were happening that we would just smother as best as we could by ourselves. Or it was like the equivalent of like taking a little water gun and like trying to squirt the water out, or a fire extinguisher, or a hose, whatever we could find. And things would get calm and cool and collected for a little bit of time. And we'd be like, oh, okay, maybe people on the outside don't realize all of the chaos that we're living, but we could feel it. We were harboring it. Now, the great thing again is that I had therapists or counselors or somebody that I was talking to, but I never really felt like when I was leaving therapy that I knew what to do in the event chaos and fires would happen. What my experience was in those 17 years was that things feel really, really bad. I'm going to sit on your couch or, in your office and unleash and tell you everything. I'm going to feel really good when I leave this office for about 2 to 3 days. And as soon as the fires start back up again, or not even a fire, but if there's a little spark, which creates the body response of me being stressed, I'm not going to feel better again until I'm back on your couch. And that was the revolving experience that I had with my therapist, counselor, psychologist, psychiatrist for 17 years. The older that I got, the more chaos was happening outside of me and the more bogged down my nervous system felt. So I felt very dysregulated. And I'll do an episode, at some point to talk about dysregulation, but I felt very dysregulated in my life. And as I got older, the conversations in the therapy offices began to change. It began to be more about, why don't you consider getting on this or that medicine? And another thing that, again, is unique to me, I'm not against people being on medicine. Some people really do need that in order to be in a good place, to, help the chemistry going on in their brain. But I will tell you that from my experience, it never felt like it was quite my brain chemistry is causing this. It was like, I know the people and what they're doing that then generate this response in me that if they would change, I would feel better. And that's what I would always tell my therapist. And my therapist would say, you can't control other people, which is absolutely correct. You can only control what's happening in your body. And so medicine can make you feel better. It can kind of just give you this, even playing field where you don't feel super emotionally activated every single time there's a fire or a spark. And the way that I felt about that was like, yeah, but it doesn't change anything about how I'm actually coping. And it doesn't actually change how the people that are doing all of these things are doing it. Like it won't change that. It'll only change my brain chemistry to where it maybe doesn't feel like a big deal, but like, did I actually learn how to cope with it? Did I actually, like, what, other than the fact that I'm going to now be kind of like muted, what did it solve? And I will tell you why I strongly really fought against taking the medicine whenever they would suggest it. It was because a part of my pain point with certain family members was that they had or they were abusing medication. So I had lived a lot of my life watching abuse of medication that is supposed to help, or medication that's supposed to help that's not working, and creating more of a rough dynamic. And so I didn't know if I would also have those same addictions to certain medicine, if I would have the same responses and reactions, if I would become just as dysregulated and end up repeating a pattern that I had seen my entire life that I had tried to run from. So I felt very strongly that I didn't want to take the medicine, but I was truly suffering and things felt very, very, very difficult for me. And so with that being said, at 23 years old, I walked away from therapy, not with any kind of like, not for any specific reason other than I graduated college. I had 2 college degrees at that point. I had a bachelor's in health science and a master's in occupational therapy. And I just leaving college and getting out on my own and starting to make my own money in my career field of choice. I wasn't prioritizing therapy. I felt like, okay, things are going to be okay. And I should also mention that I had basically the year that I graduated just come out of one of the most traumatic stretches of time for what my family had endured with this family member. And I was kind of tired and burnt out. And then lo and behold, at the same time, I was in a relationship marketing company. So like an MLM, network marketing for skincare that I still actually, I'm not involved with it anymore, but I still love the company. I still love all the people. It's amazing. And I'm glad that I made that decision despite what anybody says about MLM or relationship marketing and it being a pyramid scheme. It changed my life and it gave me everything I had today, or everything I have today. So, this being said, because I was in relationship marketing, there was a mutual high school friend that was a year older than me. And she had started working with this coach who helped women that were in network marketing grow their business. Because of all of the kind of suffering, financial hardship, things that I had endured growing up, I never wanted to be in the same position that I grew up in. I wanted myself to have a different life. I wanted different for my future family. I just wanted things to be different. And I was working really hard in my relationship marketing company. I didn't quite feel like it was my forever place, but it did feel like an avenue to get out of a situation I just didn't want to be in financially. In this relationship marketing company, it was the first time that I had ever been exposed to personal development or mindset work. And so it was really already starting to change my life. I didn't know you could change your mind. I didn't know you could, feel healthy despite all of these hard things that had been happening in your life. And so that's when I started learning positive thinking. And every book that I could get my hand on, I wanted to get on. And every TED Talk, every YouTube, like I just felt differently than I had ever felt in my entire life. And had felt like I was getting something that in some ways therapy never really did give me once I left the office. So it's like those 2 days that I felt amazing after leaving the therapy office, reading all of these books and learning mindset shifts would like prolong it. And it was the greatest thing ever for me. So this mutual friend from high school approached me and she said, "Hey, I know that you're in relationship marketing. So am I. I'm working with this coach. She's really amazing. If you're ever looking for a life coach slash business coach, I really think that you should meet her and, just see what she's about." And I wasn't interested because one of the things that I did have back then that I'm not proud of, to say necessarily, but it's true, is that my ego was really big, and big in the sense of like, not I'm greater than everybody, not that kind of ego, but like the ego of I don't need help. I have done everything on my own my entire life. I have learned not to depend on people because people let me down all the time. And I am going to figure all of this out on my own. So it was like this, the ego in me was like, I don't need anybody's help. Even though, you guys, I needed so much help. It was just like, I'm afraid to ask for help because I'm afraid of being disappointed. I'm always disappointed. And I've put my hope in people that I should be able to trust more than anything and have been let down. And so I don't need the help. I'll just do this on my own. So I left that conversation. And then I continued to go back into putting my nose into books. And I was reading a book, You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. Many of you have probably heard me talk about this book, or you've read this book, or maybe you've heard this book. And I got towards the end of the book. And in the end of the book, Jen says, when you feel like you're stuck in your life, it may be time to hire a life coach. And I just kind of thought it was odd that just weeks before I was approached and didn't even know what a life coach was when this friend tried to introduce me to hers. I didn't even know what a life coach did. I mean, I kind of had the gist of like, okay, maybe like a therapist, but I really didn't know what the life coach did. So to read it in a book, I thought, okay, I'm reading it in regards to feeling stuck. Well, I do feel kind of stuck. I felt like I was stalling in my relationship marketing business. I wasn't super, super happy in the field of occupational therapy. I loved the kids that I was working with in the families, but there's a lot of things in the medical field, political wise, and what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do. And even if you know a way to help someone, you're not always allowed to do it because your hands are tied by the organization. And so I didn't like all of that. And I was really struggling. And I was also very triggered by my OT job, which I later found out why, because of coaching. So I had these weird things playing out in my life. My family life was still chaotic, and there were still a lot of little fires that, were smaller than they had been, but still kind of annoying and painful. And then I have this work dynamic that's triggering me as an occupational therapist working with birth to three. I'm trying to build this MLM business to change my life and to get to a place of financial freedom so that I can walk away from OT and figure out what I really want to do in my life. Because again, I knew the MLM or relationship marketing wasn't my forever home. I loved it. I loved the people. I loved the company, but it just didn't feel like it was ever my forever place. And so all of this to say, after reading this book and a couple more weeks going by, the same friend that approached me the first time, for whatever reason, approached me again. And she said, I wouldn't normally reach out again, but my life coach just started a free Facebook group and she does a lot of free coaching in there. She does a lot of Facebook Lives in there. I think you should just get into the free group and see what she's about. Who knows? Maybe it might be something that you enjoy. And I thought, I'm a broke, young 24-year-old. Free sounds really, really good. So let me get into this Facebook group and just see who this person is and what she's about. And to make a long story short, I fell in love with this coach. I saw aspects of her that I could really relate to when she would talk about her personal things, just like I am talking to you guys. And maybe some of you see yourselves in my story. I felt like I could relate to her, but not only that, she had something that I didn't have. She had a really good attitude. She had a really good mentality. She was still human and still admitted fault and her mistakes, but her mindset was just something that I would strive to have. And I was broke as a joke, but I ended up sending her a gift just to say thank you for the free content because the free content was changing my life. And she would share just different things that she liked. And I decided, you know what? I was going to go to the store and I was going to pick out a few little things and I was going to ask her for her address because she lived in the same town. And I was going to send it to her. And sending that to her led us to having a dinner where she not once ever mentioned her coaching. She just got to know me and listened to me. And I learned that our backgrounds and our family life had some similarities. And I really admired like who she was and how she had overcome these hard things that I hadn't seemed to overcome in 17 years of having therapy and counseling. And I just thought like, that's so refreshing. So we left the dinner and I decided, you know what? I do want to hire her as a coach. I'm going to schedule a consult. And I scheduled a consult and I croaked at that time at what I would need to pay her to get coaching. And it was so minor compared to now, but it was life altering. It felt like oh, I will get a paycheck and then my paycheck will essentially go out to her. That's wow. And so I ended up signing up for a program. I signed up for a retreat. And I will tell you that even though the struggle was so real in paying her month after month, everything that she was coaching me on was changing my life. It completely altered my life in the best way possible. Does not mean it was easy. There were many times I was mad at her. There were many times she made me sob with the things that she would point out and the way that she held me accountable and the way that she showed me my own brain and how I was creating my own suffering. And yet it is the exact thing that I needed to be in the seat that I'm in today. And so with that being said, when people say, what is coaching? I like to think of coaching as the version of you that knows you are A, playing small, B, stuck in cycles you don't want to be in, or C, you know that there are things in your life that need to change. You're just not sure how to change them. Maybe even D, you have goals for yourself, but they feel overwhelming, so you don't ever take action on them. If you're in any of those places, and the most important part, you're ready to stop feeling like a victim to all of it, and you're ready to hear the hard things that actually put your like shapeshift your life, like absolutely just uproot all of your current thinking and limiting beliefs and get you to a place where you are going to take a totally different path, but it's the path that you've wanted to be on. You just have felt too scared or you haven't known the directions to get to that path or how you're going to maintain staying on a path that feels so unpredictable and scary. When you're ready for that, I think you're ready for coaching. And the easiest comparison that I've been able to, or the easiest example, I should say, that I've been able to say to women that get on a consult with me is by asking the question, where in your life does it not feel like a 10 out of 10? And that's what I would ask you. What category of your life feels less than a 10 out of a 10? So 10 out of 10 in my lingo just means you feel so satisfied in that area of life. Like you feel it is the absolute best that it can be. If I say, how's your marriage? And you can say it's a 10 out of 10, then you're doing amazing. If I say, how is your career? What would you rate it? And you say a 10 out of 10 and you wouldn't change a thing, then you're in a completely different place. Okay. Coaching is for the women that are maybe like, you know what? Let me be honest. My marriage is an 8 out of 10. Okay. Why is it an 8 out of 10? Why didn't you say 10 out of 10? When they tell me it's because we could communicate better, or we get into silly little fights, or because I get very emotionally triggered when my partner says XYZ, or it doesn't matter. If your life in any area feels like less than a 10 out of a 10, you're probably a good candidate for coaching, because a coach is going to help you reach the 10 out of 10. And it's not because we're seeking perfection in our life, and not because we're not trying to engage in humanness, because we can never escape our humanness. But it's because why in this one opportunity that we have, in this one life that we have, would you settle for anything less than what feels like a 10 out of 10 in your eyes? It's not a 10 out of 10 in my eyes. It's a 10 out of 10 in your eyes. That is with your romantic relationships, your immediate family dynamics, your extended family dynamics, your friendships, if I didn't say that already, your mental and emotional health, your physical health, your ability to self-care, your money, and your career. Those are all areas that can be rated. So if you think about any of those areas, and if I were to ask you in each one, how does it feel? Does it feel like a 10 out of 10? And you're not saying yes. What is the reason for not saying yes? And what is the reason for settling with it less than a 10 out of 10? Because it can go to a 10 out of 10. Again, not from perfectionism and not based on what I think your life should be, what you feel your life can be. We always know when we're not quite living up to our potential, or when we're selling ourselves short. And my podcast is named This Is Not Your Practice Life for a very specific reason, because this isn't a dress rehearsal. This isn't something that, you may ever be able to do again. You have one life, one. So why aren't you making the absolute most of it when there's so much possibility in front of you? And that means if any part of your life just feels like it could be better, or it's a little unhealthy, or you're not quite living up to where you want to be, then yes, having a life coach is very important and very beneficial. And if someone comes on a consult and they're rating their life a lot of zeros or negatives, I've been on consults where they're like, I wouldn't even rate it a 1. I would go in the negatives, or it's a 0. Lovingly, I likely am going to point them to a therapist, because if someone's life does not even feel like they can rate it a 1, then they're mentally and emotionally probably in a very defeated, depressed, low state. And it's not that coaching is inappropriate for them, but what I feel better knowing is that they have a therapist that is going to get them at what we call in occupational therapy at baseline. We want to know someone's typical baseline. And if it feels way less than their typical baseline, or they're performing less than their baseline, they're not able to shower, they're not able to get up out of bed, they're feeling really low, they're having maybe ideations, if you know what I mean, that is appropriate for a therapist, a psychiatrist, a psychologist. And as a coach, and as having a background in occupational therapy and having to be suicide prevention trained and all of that kind of stuff, I'm never going to sign someone on for coaching that is mentally struggling in that way if I'm able to catch it on a consult. And if I am able to catch it, it's not that I'm telling them no to coaching, But a lot of times I will say at this stage, I think you need a therapist. And if you already have one and you are actively working with one, then maybe coaching in addition to therapy, not as a replacement, could be a really good place for you to learn two sets of skills, because the therapist is going to rehash a lot of the past, maybe, and a lot of where you've been. And I feel like therapists nowadays too are like they're using more mindset techniques. They're using, maybe even more bridge of like coaching techniques. But a coach is specifically like, okay, that the past created maybe where you feel you are today or where you are today, but what is the future you're wanting to take yourself to? And now I am going to, with a magnifying glass, essentially look at every single thought and help you feel and understand every single emotion that is keeping you from getting where you say you want to be. So I kind of feel like I'm a blend of a detective and maybe even like a loving interrogator, and, will help women specifically learn themselves, gain more self awareness, and have actual tools that move them forward. And that's ultimately what coaching gave me. It gave me the ability to see my mind, and it gave me the ability to not feel fearful of my emotions or controlled by them. And I will tell you that, in the 8 years that I've actually been coaching women, I think 5 of them I've been specifically an emotional intelligence coach. And that is because the hardest thing for me when I was being coached by my coach was feeling my feelings or understanding emotion and understanding the immense impact that my EQ was having on my life. When my emotional intelligence score in general raised and strengthened, my entire life changed. And that is why that is my MO with my own clients, because I know the power of our emotional intelligence skills. Our mindset is so important, but man, our emotions drive all of our actions and inactions and everything we choose to do. Not only that, but our emotions send out an energetic frequency into the world that then comes back like a boomerang and gives us what we're experiencing. So when our emotional state goes unchecked, and when we're burying things, or when we try to push things off as they're not being a big deal, or when we're too busy to address it, or it feels too painful, it feels too hard, whether it's this minimal. And if you're not watching the podcast, I have like a little tiny piece that I'm signaling. It's like the littlest amount or the biggest still impacts our entire life. So I love working with women specifically in their emotional intelligence skills, because I know no matter where they start, it's not where they have to end. And I know the impact of an emotional intelligence raising. It impacts your life in so many different ways. Your relationships get healthier and better. Your communication gets healthier and better. How you cope with things are better. The opportunities available to you in corporate settings, the higher ups want emotionally intelligent people working for them, because how you handle conflict, how you navigate and lead a team, how you make decisions, how you problem solve, your flexibility, your stress tolerance, all of that changes. And when you are someone that can demonstrate those levels of skill, you not only set yourself up for promotions, but also more money, more opportunity, bigger movements, whether it's within that company or it's opportunities elsewhere. It's like it will change your entire life. And if you're an entrepreneur, emotional intelligence is basically non-negotiable, because how far you can go is really going to be based on how much you can emotionally regulate within yourself. So the work ripples, and when you're doing better, oftentimes it invites the people around you to do better, right? So it either goes one way or another. You become better and you become aware, and that shift in you invites other people to rise up themselves. Or if they are super resistant to growth and change, you will start to feel those trickle off. And that can sometimes be a scary part of doing the work and coaching yourself, or getting coached. But overall, I will say, like, you will have so much more fulfillment and peace, and life just becomes like so much more enriching when you have the skills versus when you don't. So when people ask me, like, what is a coach and what do they do? Is it like therapy? Yes and no. there's some crossover between the two, but a coach you hire when you just know in your gut like things could probably be better than they are, and I'm just not equipped with everything I maybe need to be equipped with, and I want to learn what that is. And so I'm willing to be told the hard things. I'm willing to see the things that I don't see now. I'm willing to have the help and someone to guide me. I am willing to trust and believe in myself, but know that there is this other person that will trust and believe with me and for me until I can get myself there. And I truly believe this isn't my practice life, and life is short and you never know how much time you have. And so if there's any area of my life that feels like less than a 10 out of 10, I want to make sure that I love my life, that I'm in love with my life, that I enjoy waking up to every part of my life every single day. And if there's anything that's keeping it from feeling like that 10 out of 10, where I would rate it like, oh, it's great, I wouldn't change a thing, there's some room for growth. And do I want to take hold of it? And when women do, and they know they can go from a 5 to a 10 or a 7 to a 10 or a 2 to a 10, right? That is when a coach is such a valuable resource and tool, when you just feel like every part of your life is truly a 10 out of 10. And I will tell you that, yes, certain areas get to a 10 out of 10 and they feel really good. And then a lot of times what happens in coaching is you love the community, you love the women, you love the friendships that you've gained, you love how you feel in having a coach, that it's not like you can't ever stop. Because I have been asked that question too. I've been asked in the past, like, why do your clients work with you for so long? Because a lot of my clients stay with me and have been with me for a long time. Like, some of my longest clients that have been pretty consistent have been with me for 7 years. And so I've been fairly asked the question, why do they stay with you so long? Like, if you're actually helping them get better, why do they keep coming around, 2 years later, 3 years later, 7 years later? Like, what is it? And I giggled whenever I was asked this question, but I think the truth is, in my communities, is that some of these women, when you're working on yourself, you realize very quickly, especially with emotional intelligence and just general mindset awareness, that most people in the world are not. So there becomes this very small circle of people that you actually feel can hold space for you and that you can really trust and that you feel connected to on a different level. It's not that you maybe lose all of your people you've been around your entire life, but it's different because you feel connected to women at a different level. They're also doing the hard work. They're not just people preaching to you or telling you what to do. Like, they have a different level of skill. And that makes this community of mine that I built very valuable and fun. And we do the hard work, but we also celebrate a lot, and we celebrate really, really hard. And when you get into this work and you start shaping up and getting 10 out of 10s in certain areas, I think a lot of times it's like, oh my gosh, so much has opened up in my world by doing this work. What else is possible? So it's not like I have to stay because I feel broken, or I have to stay because I'm not getting results. It's like I've actually changed my life so much and have gotten so many results and so much faster than I would have if I did it by myself, that I love being here. I love someone constantly catching where my brain is falling short. I love being around other women that know how to catch it too. I love the experience and the life that coaching has given me. And when you love something, why walk away from it if you're still continuing to get something out of it at different levels? So it's like you just keep up leveling. You just keep getting better and better. You just keep realizing you get more and more better results and possibilities and opportunities and stronger friendships and better relationships and more money and more, it's like, why stop? It's the most fun thing when you get out of maybe what starts as like, I want to get out of this because I'm miserable. I think people usually hire a coach maybe from that place, like, something in my life, even if not all of it, but something in my life feels miserable. I want to change that. And then it becomes like, oh my gosh, so much in my life is good and just keeps getting better. And so it goes from I need coaching to I love coaching. I love it. I love it here. And I think that that's why a lot of my community stays. And and some stay, some go, some are here for a short period of time and they leave. But I will say the majority of my community tend to come around. And when I'm offering new programs or a second round of something or a third round of something, they just know the benefit of their brain constantly getting sharper and sharper. So they don't need to be here. They don't have to be here. They want to be here. And then that just makes it an even more fun and enriching community because so many of the women love it, and they build really strong friendships and community in having it. And it's something that I think is really rare in our lives today. How many women are dating out in the world and realizing like their emotional level is completely different than maybe some of the people that they're meeting, and vice versa. There's a lot of men dating that are in a good place emotional intelligence wise or life wise, and maybe dating women where they're like, we're on totally different levels. And so that's a hard thing, right? We're meant to be social creatures. We're meant to connect. And when you start doing this work, you realize a lot of people that are not doing this work, it's just a natural part of the process. And you want to be engulfed in people who know how to go from something that feels maybe bad or something that doesn't feel as great as it could to feeling really good. And then knowing how to like celebrate that and hold space for that and hold space for the humanness and the hard, but encourage and build on the good. It's an amazing experience. And that's been my experience 10 years. And that's why I still do the work and hire the coaches and get the coaching calls. And because why not? It's made my life significantly better. So that is what I would have to say about coaching and what it is. And it's taking your mind and enhancing it times 100, times 1,000, and getting to reap the rewards of all of that. And knowing actual tools to go from feeling pretty crummy to getting yourself out of it and creating the results you want. And being willing to hear the hard things and ask for the help and humble yourself and push ego aside to live life to the absolute fullest that it can be. We don't know what we don't know. So unless we're willing to have our brain looked at, we don't know what we don't know. And a lot of people don't know that their life can feel even better than it currently does, even if it already feels great. And also, a lot of people don't know that if their life feels miserable, that can actually be totally different even a year from now. So that is what I have to say about coaching. It's changed my entire life. It's changed, I know, a lot of my clients' lives, and I'm thankful that, I took the leap in my journey so that it could be a ripple for the clients that I'm coaching and the clients that I will coach. And I will just tell you that if you are in a space where you're looking to just see what coaching can give you in a year, let me encourage you to take the leap and do the Immersion Collection that I am launching right now. And that will start April 27th. It is one immersive year with me. It is every single coaching program that I offer. The website will be going live soon. It is meant to be spacious because I know that you already have a busy life. I'm not trying to take away a bunch of your time. I'm trying to pour into you in a very short amount of time that doesn't feel overwhelming and that feels like you can actually exhale. That coaching is a place you want to be because of what you get over the course of the year. So we will start with private coaching, where I will get to know you very well. You can probably see if you're watching on YouTube how thick this workbook is. It's not any kind of homework you have to do. It is meant to give you in every category of life things that you can come to coaching with. There's journal prompts, there's places where you can do a bunch of work if you want to, so that way you never come to your coaching call unprepared. And once I get to know you really well in one-on-one coaching, then you will transition into my mini programs, which are specialized to help us get even more clear on specific things in your life, what you're doing well, what you're not doing well, where you need clarity. These are actually really, really fun programs. And then from there, you will graduate into my advanced coaching rooms where you will do the hybrid experience, which is something that my clients have really loved. And that's going to make your skills very sharp in emotional intelligence. And then from there, you will go into my newest, which hasn't even come about yet because those ladies start later this month. And it's called The Art of Agency. And that is where you take your self-leadership skills to the next level. It's like There's advanced and then there's mega advanced. And the art of agency is mega advanced. And so you get to experience all of this in the course of a year, not to mention you will immediately get access into my program that is lifetime called the Equip Society, so that even when you're done with your 1-year immersion, you always have a place to be coached by me every single week, as much or as little as you want. It's not required that you show up. It's a resource and tool where if you want coaching for the rest of your days, you will have it. But this will be a very intentional year, and then you will always have a place to land to maintain your coaching skills and to maintain the community. So it's a really great opportunity. We're going to be starting April 27th, and enrollment is happening now. And what all of the women have paid doing these separately is not what you're going to pay by doing it in the Immersion Collection. So just be sure you check out my website, macierenee.com, because the website will be going live very soon. And trust me, it is a year you will not regret. Give me 1 year and I'll show you what it can actually do for your life. You will love it. So if that is of interest to you, I would love to have you. I'd love to coach you. And completing the Immersion Collection will qualify you to apply to my 2028 women's retreat, which is in Italy. And we're going to go to different cities in Italy. It is going to be the largest, most amazing retreat that I've ever held. And it's been a dream of mine for a good decade. So I'm excited to execute it in 2028, but it's not going to be open to the public. It's only going to be open to the women who have done work from foundational to advanced. And if you want to make sure you can qualify for it, the Immersion Collection is a wonderful way to do that. And it will also save you not only time, but money in doing it this way versus doing it in separate little pieces. So if you have questions, you can always reach out and schedule a consult, and I'd be happy to serve you. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if I haven't ever met you, reach out and connect. Otherwise, thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time. Hey there. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. If you'd like to connect on social media, you can find me on both Instagram and Facebook at Macie Renee Coaching. And if you want to stay up to date on all of my offers, announcements, and inspirational emails, you can join my email list at macierenee.com. In addition, if there's a way that I can further support you in your coaching journey, you can schedule a free 60-minute consult at macierenee.com anytime you want, so we can discuss the best options for you. I look forward to seeing you next week, and I hope you have an amazing day. Bye.